Okay, hello. My name's John Ennis, curator, producer at Journeys in Design, and welcome back to the Journeys in Design Hub. We've had a change of scene. We've gone from my living room to my kitchen. The light's a little kinder, and we're continuing our series of talking culture, talking practice. So we've been developing, as lockdown slowly lifts, a blended set of offerings, mostly online, but some outside broadcasts on the ground to come as well. 4 projects from Journeys in Design this summer, autumn. 2 of them are the continuing iterations of our linen stories for 2020. One of those is about creative migration, and the other is honouring the working women of the linen industry with our project called Making Millie 2020, and the object culture there being the Linen Millie tea towel dolls. Really delighted to have launched our Linen Stories Making Millie 2020 at our space in Lisburn, ahead of a launch in Kirkcaldy in Silverburn in Scotland. And so it's lovely to be joined today to talk about linen cultures with the director, one of the directors of our space in Lisburn, Robert Martin. Hello, Martin. Hello, Robert.
Hi, John.
How are you doing? So I'm in the city of Edinburgh in Scotland with a Scottish summer, of course, squally showers, occasional sunshine, don't plan a barbecue. And there's been something of a cannier lag, I think, in releasing us from lockdown over here. We've kept the lid on things a little bit longer, but it's meant that we've had some challenges. And how has the city of Lisburn been in this last really strange period for everyone?
How's the city of Lisburn been?
Yes, quiet.
Yes, it's getting busier now since they've lifted things over here, but and people are being a bit silly actually. So I'd rather be in Scotland, to be honest.
Well, there's a learning curve for everyone, isn't it? It's a new reality for everyone. But you're in Lisburn, I'm in Edinburgh. We're both migrants of sorts. So I left in the mid-80s, and I've been in Scotland for more than 30 years. And your accent isn't one from Lisburn, so you've had a journey yourself. You want to tell us a little bit about what's been your journey towards Lisburn?
Well, I studied art and design, went to art school, studied 3-dimensional design. Then I taught in art school. Then I studied ceramics and glass, and then I left to set up a glass blowing furnace in Japan with my friend Toshinobu Takemitsu in the open studio in Kumamoto in the south, and they've got terrible weather at the moment. They've floods as well as earthquakes. Yeah, then I came back to England and wanted to set up my own glass blowing furnace, so I did that for 10 years. I was a glassmaker for 10 years, and I found it really hard to make a living. Making stuff's easy, selling it's the hard thing.
Yeah, right.
But I also had a little gallery in the studio. Then after that, I started teaching again, lecturing in art school. And then I got offered a job as education officer in Preston, Harris Museum in Preston. Then I applied for a job as development officer for Lancashire County Council. Then that led on to a job in the Arts Council of England.
Okay.
And I had the education brief, the architecture brief, and the visual arts and crafts brief in the end. So I was there for 13 years, and then got made redundant when we got the Olympics. Like a lot of my colleagues, got made redundant. And then I moved over here. Anthea moved over here to Northern Ireland and set up the gallery in 2011, basically.
I mean, that's what an extraordinary career of experience. And what's interesting for me hearing that is that you've seen it from lots of sides, from the obviously being a student, but obviously contributing to education from the funding side of things. But crucially, I think, with some empathy for the practitioner who's trying to make a living. And I get that in a lot of the work that you do, both supporting the practitioners locally and bringing international talent and drawing on your experience from that incredible diverse career journey. One of the early conversations we had was about some of the experience, I think, that you drew into the Linen Biennale, which we'll talk about in a minute, into Lisburn, from, was it the ceramics and pottery in Stoke?
Yeah, a couple of ex-colleagues of mine from the Arts Council set up a consultancy agency, and were invited by Stoke-on-Trent Council to initiate the British Ceramics Biennale. So that was 20 years ago now, and that's been a success. It's, you know, as the industry's dead over there or dying on its last legs or whatever. The same with the linen industry here when I moved here. And
we better jump in and do a quick shout out for Clark's in Upperlands and Ferguson's in Survivors.
A few others as well. Well, Ferguson's is big, and so is Clark's. You know, they're trying to keep it alive. You know, and good luck to them. You know, we work with them. Yeah. So the industry, we try. People can forget their history pretty quickly as well, you know, and you want to keep it alive. And as you know, the Irish Linen Centre is just 200 yards down the road here.
I mean,
I know people in the textile world that know about that place, but we're always frightened to come here for the old reasons in Northern Ireland. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I hear all of what you're saying there. I think, you know, you're clearly in a fantastic linen town. I draw comparisons between Lisburn, which was a thriving linen centre and sadly has no longer any mills, with Kirkcaldy, where we've based one of our design hubs here, and it has Scotland's only remaining weaver and linen producer, Peter Gregg's in Kirkcaldy, and it's been lovely to work with them over there, and we hope to do more of that. But Lisburn itself, incredible. You've mentioned already the museum and the Irish Linen Centre, who really, you know, help in that overall sense of what the linen culture is about. And you're within the shadow, I guess, of the Lisburn Cathedral. And that was an exciting development for us, because Journeys in Design was able to journey outside Scotland for the first time as part of your Linen Biennale, and present our Linen Stories core exhibition at that stage within the Lisburn Cathedral, which of course, in terms of migration, is the burial ground in the grounds of those Huguenots that came from France and galvanized to a degree the linen industry in Ireland, as they did when they came to Scotland. They're remembered in Street Picardy Place in the centre of Edinburgh, and they came from Picardy, 12 weaving families, to Scotland. So there was a lovely link to draw there. And I love that the Linen Millie that you have over your right shoulder looks out to the site of the first Huguenot church in the road. Yeah. So that's a lovely, I like that the woman of industry is looking across to the Huguenots who maybe galvanized that very industry initially. So you're sitting in our space gallery, and what a wonderful building it is as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that building?
Yeah, this used to be the rectory for the cathedral, built in 1780. It's Georgian, and then Anthea's parents bought it in the 50s, so this became their family home, her and the sisters.
And Anthea, I should just quickly jump in, is your partner in crime in our space. Yeah. I met the McWilliams sisters during the time that we launched a couple of weeks ago in our space. But yes, carry on.
Yeah, so they grew up here, so the building's steeped in history with their family. So Anthea ran a small gallery in one of the spaces here for 10 years, supporting local artists. And then when we met, we had this new gallery built on the ground floor by a couple of architects under the name of 22/7, award-winning architects. So they were behind the refurb of this.
Well,
this
it's an absolutely beautiful intervention. That you've maintained those beautiful brick arches and the glazing and everything. And so I was very honoured that you took on the curating of Linen Millies, and they look really splendid in your windows. You mentioned also, I think, in previous chats we've had, it's called the Linen Rooms, and there's another famous Lisburn person that you link to, and that's Sir Richard Wallace.
Yeah, Sir Richard Wallace of the Wallace collection in London, fourth Marquis of Hertford. He was he owned, the Hertfords owned County Antrim basically, and so he was the local MP here. He actually lived in Paris as well as London.
As you do.
He's buried in Père Lachaise.
Oh, really?
He's famous for the Wallace fountains, La Wallace fountains.
Of course, that's those unique in Paris. That's the, I'd forgotten about that wonderful design, yes.
Yeah, he had them made to give clean drinking water to poor people in the siege of Paris. So yeah, it's got a strong connection with Paris, Lisbon.
And I mean, you've brought such extraordinary a wealth of exhibitions too. And in fact, speaking of Richard Wallace, I'm reminded of a wonderful exhibition you had with a local glass artist who worked with the collection, I think the Armoury collection.
Alison Lowry, yeah, we've started a sort of relationship, a working relationship with the Wallace collection. We support an artist to go across to the collection and respond to the collection. We've had 2 exhibitions so far, and the third one's just about to open when we re-merge out of this in September.
Good.
By Robert Peters. He's a printmaker.
Fantastic. I mean, I think for me, looking in, that's what our space really champions, those very meaningful, layered collaborations that bring something into Lisburn and bring the joy of what happens in Lisburn and in and around it. I've had lots of favourite exhibitions. I'm bound to mention Linen Futures with Jane McCann, and of course it was your introduction to Jane that let me...
Professor Jane McCann.
Pardon?
Professor Jane McCann.
I beg your pardon, yes, let's get that right. And it was, I have to say a big thank you to you for the introduction, and to Jane and to Vanessa Habib and Maureen Shaw, who 3 have helped, guide me and link me into linen and flax fibre as I've done my research for our linen stories in Scotland. I don't know, would you have any highlights from the many varied programs that you've established for our space?
Well, it all started back in the beginning of this, really, with I'd funded a lot of large-scale textile exhibitions when I worked for the Arts Council. So when I came here and found out the history of linen, it was a kind of no-brainer to think about
amazing
linen being a focus. And so the first exhibition we had with Anna Dimitriou was called Normal Flora, the Art and Science of Linen. She did a video piece with her partner, Alex May, called The Art and Science of Linen, because she works with scientists and microbiologists and people like this. And so when she found out I was here and it was linen I was interested in, she got into the retting process of linen. And produced this video with Alex, and she returned again. She's used linen as a metaphor for her practice ever since, and she returned again in 2018 in the Biennale with this exhibition called From the Field.
Okay, I remember it, and I mean that links us nicely into to talk about the Biennale, this incredible festival and celebration of linen culture. I think you called it Recall, Rethink and Reform. Beautiful, past, present, future assessment of where Northern Ireland sits. And so it was a big privilege for us to bring our linen stories, the first time out of Scotland, to be part of that 2018 Biennale. And your work with Anna, that's a great example of how you have nurtured, nurtured individuals as well as the program. So she came to help you open our space. You brought her back for 2018, and you were kind enough to introduce me, and I went to meet her in Brighton. And we had a very interesting conversation. Flax Fields is one of our projects in Scotland, legacy projects, and I hope to work with Anna on that basis shortly. So we have got a chance to talk about Biennale. And if you give me 2 ticks, I'm going to ask you to talk about your favorite memories of the Biennale. I have got a very quick person who's about to interrupt me. So would you like to talk about, well, there was joy and heartache with it, as there is for any big project. I hold dear my brochure as well. What would be your highlights of that?
Well, the highlights were this is the wonderful team that a small team. We were supported by the Arts Council of Northern Ireland and the British Council and the Heritage Lottery Fund and Lisburn City Council to deliver the Biennale. We had a feasibility study done in 2015, so it took us another 3 years or whatever to pull this off. A lot of work was done voluntarily. Jane McCann put in a tremendous amount of effort pulling together the international conference that we had. We did a research trip. There's a Biennale in Canada that we went to visit because I'd had brought an exhibition over here from Canada. So it's this diaspora thing that you're talking about all the time.
Linen diaspora, exactly.
The international conference, we had people from the Pratt Institute in New York, people from the Textile Museum in Holland, people from the Montreal Centre for Contemporary Textiles. It was a really, truly international conference.
I love that word, Robert.
And that was on the back, the hard work that Professor Jane McCann put into that because of her incredible network of people around the world.
Fantastic. That was certainly one of the highlights as well. I'm going to jump in with that wonderful fashion show that happened in Prony. The joy that we have now working with Prony going forward. In fact, you're good enough to put in their Tracer family lineage in linen as part of the Making Millie conversation. The Christine Mendersmith chair with Donegal tweed, fantastic. Trish Belford's exhibition at Lisburn Centre. Fiona McKelvey's walks, which went down a treat. And I guess the 2018 iteration of Jane's Linen Futures, that one that I saw way back when, and in particular Cecilia Stevens' work in that, and Sue Shields. And that's pertinent, of course, because Journeys in Design went on to work with Sue Shields to commission wonderful Linen Millie tea towel, which brings us back to the Making Millie exhibition over your shoulder there. So it's really to your credit that you've not only brought together this wonderful Biennale, its first iteration, but that you've generated the interest to roll it forward for the subsequent iterations whenever they may be. But in the meantime, a huge thank you from us for hosting Making Millie. And I really hope for future months when we can actually be in the same building safely with more than just ourselves.
Yep.
A big thank you and good luck with the next stages as we open up again at our space and elsewhere.
Well, just spread the word, John,
Absolutely.
And your network. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Robert. Cheers for now.
Cheers.